warm welcome to the L&D Leader's Guide to Applying AI in Learning. My name is Sofie Nabseth, and I'm part of the core team at Sana Labs. And today we have a very special guest with us, which is you, Lavinia. We're so excited to have you, and we're going to dive much deeper into this topic of AI within L&D. But before we do so, we have a few ground rules where we really want you all to react to ideas and comment with emojis. So at the very bottom of your screen, you have a little toolbar that will appear where you can react with all of these emojis. You can also raise your hand. Please feel free to try it out, and I'll try to pick you out in order if you have questions, and then just click on it again to lower your hand. And of course, we have the chat to ask any questions, or perhaps you have found one of your LinkedIn friends that you want to say hi to, and you can respond directly in that thread. So we really want to keep this session active. So do ask a lot of questions. And my colleague Jenny is with me here from Sana Labs today. And Jenny, I know you'll do your best to moderate the chat in the meantime. So do fire away with questions, and Lavinia and I will also do our best to pick up those questions. So let's get into it, to the first interactive exercise, where I will ask you all the reason for attending and a short introduction. So please share your name, your role, and where you're dialing in from, and what questions you would like us to cover in today's session. So just type in this reflection card, and then you have a submit button below it on the left-hand side, or you can hit Control Enter or Command Enter to share your answer. Put a short timer on this. Fantastic. A lot of answers coming in here. Everything from London and the UK to Belgium. People who want to learn more about how we can utilize AI in L&D successfully. How to use ChatGPT in L&D. From Denmark to India. Some insights around how we can utilize AI within L&D, how it can assist in the instructional design process. Calling in from Amsterdam, curious about learning about AI and L&D. A lot of really, really good questions here, of course, all on the theme of AI and L&D. And of course, we'll do our best to try to answer these topics and questions as much as we can. But again, do use the chat and shoot questions at us as we go throughout this session. So thank you all for being really active and taking part in this session as we're getting into it. But now I would really like to introduce our special guest, Lavinia. You come from the employee development and HR background from both startup and scale-up environment. And you've launched what's to become a very successful newsletter that I'm sure many people are readers of here today, Offbeat. And this has now grown into a global L&D community. Of course, it all started in the middle of the pandemic in your hometown in Romania. But today you're here to talk about the trends within the digital workplace. A warm welcome. How are you?
Hi, Sophie. I'm good. Thank you. I'm really excited to see many familiar names here. And yeah, just very happy to talk about this topic.
Of course. And I hope that I'm going to be as good friends with everyone as you are after this session. But Lavinia, you launched Offbeat in 2020, as I said, in the middle of the pandemic from Bucharest in Romania. And it's really now its entirely own business, and you've grown this into a global community. What made you launch Offbeat in the first place?
Well, a funny short story is that I was bored because I couldn't go out like everyone else. But beyond that, I think first it was for myself. I knew that I needed to keep on learning and growing and maybe connecting with even more people than I did before, to socially learn as well. And then as time went by and I got to meet more people, I realized that's a common need. So everyone felt that there's too much information, that they need better resources, that they need to learn from others. And I thought that maybe I can facilitate that social learning as well. And in the end, I think there's a lot of chatter in the L&D world about the need to change, like previous generations have been talking about the same things that we are talking now. So I think the question I'm trying to answer is if us as a community can move the needle. And I'm not doing this by myself, but rather with some people that are even here.
Definitely. And I mean, we are here as a big community today. We're happy to have all of you here. I'm so happy that you've all taken the time and that you are curious and interested about this subject. And of course, the subject of AI and L&D may not be the most obvious connected to each other. So Lavinia, a question to you as well, and for the entire community, what do you think everyone should bear in mind and take with them today as we're going into this topic?
Well, I think ever since ChatGPT became a sensation, there's been a lot of chatter all over the internet, LinkedIn, if you're there, about oh my God, we have to adopt AI right now because we're going to be displaced or we're going to become obsolete or whatever. And I think those are a bit of, sensational news headlines. And I'm not saying that's not going to happen at some point. Like AI will definitely become even bigger than it is now. But I think it also takes away the curiosity of learning about this topic, just because you get so overwhelmed by, oh my God, I have to do this now. I don't understand what's out there. I don't understand what ChatGPT is. How can this help me in my L&D role? So I would rather this be a very chill conversation. We're here to learn, and as a mindset, I would nudge people to just stay away maybe from those headlines and take this as a learning opportunity.
Definitely, I fully agree. And I think that's everyone's drive here, right? To learn more and be part of accelerating learning. But I do agree that the AI can feel very overwhelming, and the headlines, as you said, do create a lot of thoughts for everyone. So I want to ask everyone in the room who's here today how you feel about AI, whether you feel that it's overwhelming and difficult to navigate, or maybe you think that it feels that it makes a lot of sense, you know how to use it in your work. So please drag your initials here on the line so that you can place yourself, and nothing is right or wrong here. I see that we have a wide spread of how people feel. Many of you feel that it does make sense, you know how to use it in your work, but many of you also feel that it's overwhelming. And of course this can be, I'm sure both can happen at the same time. And I think, Lavinia, I can speak for both of us when we hope that we hope that everyone can place themselves a little bit further to the left after the session of today. But with this said, let's move ahead. And Lavinia, you're spending your days helping people to catch up with the myriad of resources and trends affecting the learning industry. And at the end of last year, you looked back at all the articles published and diligently went through 50 published learning trend reports that you've divided into these 6 different areas with 4 different time horizons. And the different time horizons here are the foresight zone, which is the long-term perspective needing 20 or more years to enter the mainstream. We have the innovation zone, the widest zone, with a 5 to 10 year timeline to enter the mainstream. The reactive zone, already happening and people are tagging along. It's about 1 to 5 years to enter mainstream. And then the new normal. This is the current mainstream and companies are already adopting it. Why did you feel that there was a need to create this trend map?
Well, for everyone who doesn't know here, I'm curating a newsletter for L&D professionals every week. And at the end of last year, every time I would go through my usual process, I could see that there was a new report every week. And I started thinking, oh my God, does anyone have the time to go through all of this? But moreover, to make sense of everything that's written in there by the research that's in there. And I thought, okay, I could do this. I need it for myself, and I like summarizing things. So then I thought of doing like this very nice visual, and it ended up being useful for me, and for I got good feedback from others, just because, again, making sense and summarizing all the chatter that's out there, because there's a lot of information overload about L&D trends, and not only, obviously.
Definitely, and I believe that many people feel like you. Where should I look, and how should I make sense of all of this? And within both of the mega trends of the digital workplace as well as personalization, you've placed the theme of AI and machine learning. How come you placed specifically AI and machine learning within these trends?
Well, the first thing to understand is that I saw the outer layer as goals that can be impacted in one way or another by our work as well. And something that I saw myself lose sight of, and I see others lose sight of, is that technology is an enabler. You know, when you're there and you're trying to, acquire a new tool, understand whatever technology, it feels like a goal, but it's not. It's an enabler. And my understanding is that AI, machine learning, among other technologies, can become enablers for these 2 very, very specific goals, which are personalization and the digital workplace. And for me, personalization comes as a need to respond to information overload and lower attention spans that are happening right now. And on the other hand, on the other side of the spectrum, when it comes to digital workplace, it's on everyone's lips, and it spurs from a need for efficiency as well to compete in the marketplace, because everyone is adopting technology in some way or another, and you need, as an organization, as a business, you need to stay competitive. So yeah, that is why.
And I fully agree. It makes a lot of sense. It's a solution, and both due to the information overload and hence the need for personalization, and of course making organizations more effective. How can we use this as a tool to do so? And you've spotted then AI and ML as part of this new normal time horizon, meaning that the adoption of AI is becoming more mainstream for organizations. But of course, everyone might not feel this way. So I'd be curious to hear from everyone in the session today, in which zone would you say that AI is present within your organization? Perhaps it's the new normal, you've already adopted it, the reactive zone, a lot of people has it and you are about to implement it, or perhaps the innovation zone. You're talking about it and will adopt it over the next few years. And then I needed to add an alternative, which is that you're not going to adopt it. And of course, all of these answers there's nothing right or wrong here. This is super interesting. Lavinia, was this an answer that you expected, that at least now around 60% of everyone feels that AI is in the innovation zone?
It's not surprising, to be honest. Like, I think the conversation about AI, it goes way back in the past, but what I feel is that OpenAI and obviously other organizations as well have brought it closer to the consumer. So I think it's just about now that we actually understand what we can do with AI, whereas so far it was obviously used in production lines, in recommendation systems for, I would say, for our end consumers. So I'm not that surprised.
Okay, good. And of course, as we were talking about this and preparing, we were of course also stating that AI is present in a lot of tools that we already are using. But then it's the question of, okay, how are other use cases and where can you find value from those? And I think this comes back to using AI or machine learning as enablers. And moving back to the trend map again, we can see that there are many technologies that all are enablers. And within this specific slice of the cake, all of these are technologies, but power skills. What impact do you think that AI has on the digital workplace in general, but also on power skills specifically? And why are power skills so important for organizations now?
Well, I think it's the obvious one. With every wave of technology, what ended up happening is that old jobs were, or not all jobs, some jobs were being displaced, some jobs were changing, and new jobs would emerge. Like if you look back in history, this is what it always happened. And the question now is how this technology specifically will change our current jobs. And I think there's a lot of conversation happening about this power skills, which, well, there is a reason why I call them power and not soft skills as we did before. It's just because the word soft can make us think that, it's easy to adopt or it's not as important. Whereas power, I really think that the power of humans lie in these power skills. So I think we'll see more of, critical thinking, self-leadership, teamwork, digital fluency happening, and a bigger focus on these skills rather than what we've seen so far. And there's a great article from McKinsey talking about this with some really nice categories. You can definitely check. It's if you look citizen skills and McKinsey, you're gonna find it.
Definitely. And obviously this is changing not only for us as individuals in terms of the skills we need, but also for organizations as a whole, and their entire way of operating is changing. How do you think we within L&D can help our organizations prepare in this shift in operating?
First thing is for us to have a very good understanding of what AI, and to be honest, any other technology out there can and cannot do for us. And also in the same area of understanding is where is our organization going, and is this a solution for the challenges that we foresee? So I would move away from saying, okay, AI will solve things, or just looking at these technologies as a solution for all the problems that we can see in our organization. So there's a lot of understanding that we need to do. And then I can see two layers here. First is about how can we impact the organization as a whole, and then how can we impact career development for individuals and for organizations as a whole. I think, again, we need to keep an eye on what are the skills that we will need to compete in the marketplace, to become really winners, as everyone is saying in the marketplace. And this, again, I think we really need good research skills. I'm not saying we don't have them, but we need to look very closely at data. And it's interesting how these two things impact each other, because even AI can help us look closer at data. So we really need research skills, data skills, and our stakeholders to, not for us to be close to us, but rather for us to kind of be the fly on the walls in whatever important discussions they are having. And when it comes to career development, I do feel like we need to, for example, help people learn how to learn. So if there's a skill that is gonna help us adapt to whatever change is happening, because we don't know what other changes are happening. But if we know how to adapt, how to change our behaviors faster, how to learn new skills, it's gonna be, I wouldn't say enough, but it's gonna be a big win for us in our careers.
I agree. And I think a lot of the times at Sana Labs, we're often talking about how to unlearn something, because when we're talking about learning and development and change, as we always should talk about, we shouldn't forget that final word, change, because that's, as you're saying, what this is all about. We need to learn in order to change our organizations. Mm-hmm. I want to come back to the trend map again and look at the digital workplace and move closer into the center of this, where we're coming back to AI and machine learning specifically. And as we've already stated here, and you said it before, Lavinia, AI has been around for a while, since the 50s, but over the last 2 months, it has really exploded. Of course, much due to ChatGPT and image generation tools like DALL-E exploding over social media and in many different industries. And many of us might have tested tools like ChatGPT before. I heard someone who wrote a good night story for the children using ChatGPT. There are many applications for it. But of course, it might be difficult to understand more specifically how tools like ChatGPT can help us within the L&D industry, just like one of the questions asked earlier in the reflection tools. So I want to ask here, how many of you have tried AI tools like ChatGPT or image generation tools like DALL-E? It doesn't have to be these specifically, and it doesn't have to be within your work. It can be outside of your work, just for fun. And we're having a majority who have tried it. I'd be curious to hear some examples of what you have tried it for. Feel free to share that in the chat. And there are those of you who haven't tried it. I hope that you will get a greater understanding after today's session for similar tools to ChatGPT and how they can be applied within learning. And as we already have discussed today, AI can really be everything from generative tools to personalization engine in the other pie chart. A question for you, Lavinia, when we're talking specifically about AI within L&D. Have you seen any successful examples, and what are those successful examples of implementing AI within L&D or their work?
I want to start this answer actually with a call to action to everyone here. Please be more open in sharing what you're doing within L&D, because that's how we can learn from each other more. Because it wasn't easy along the way to learn how can AI be implemented in L&D. But I can share, of course, some use cases. And again, in my view, there are also layers. The first layer is everything that has to do with automation. Things that we are doing manually right now and that AI can do for us faster. And I'm not going to give too much here because I think, Sofie, you have more insight into this actually. Then another layer is everything that has to do with personalization. And here I have two examples from, I would say, very big companies, because they are the ones that always adopt very fast these new technologies. And the first one is Deloitte, with Deloitte University. What they do is that they looked throughout the employee learning journey, and they go from understanding very well the skill gaps that are happening that are present within their organization, then recommending learning experiences. And here you can look at everything from articles, books, trainings, workshops, whatever, based on those skill gaps. And in the end, they come back with feedback depending on whatever the learner goes through and whatever they achieve in quizzes or virtual assignments, or whatever they can use to offer feedback. So this is an example from Deloitte, and another interesting example comes from IBM, obviously another big company. They have this tool called Opportunity Team Builder AI. And what they did is that they wanted to have a new sales team. And the question was, who should be in this sales team, and how will they impact the outcome of whatever they were doing? And they used their AI engine to assess and learn about the people in their organization, choose whomever the AI said was best for the team, and also predict every individual's impact in the team. So that was a very interesting use case. And then as another layer, so I talked about automation and efficiency, then there's a lot of personalization happening. Another thing we've been talking about forever is learning in the flow of work. So I'm a bit tired of this discussion and how we can achieve it. A nice example here comes from the good old Microsoft. They have this feature called Microsoft Cortex. And imagine you have a document, and in the document you have different keywords like project management, engineering, whatever. I'm just giving weird examples here. And what they did was tag those keywords and recommend not only resources, but also experts to reach out to explore for those different keywords. And this is an example. And another one is extremely related to ChatGPT. And it comes, if I'm not mistaken, from PwC. The difference between what PwC did and what ChatGPT is the data source. So if, and Sofie, you can correct me if my understanding is wrong, but ChatGPT looks at the internet, and that's its main data source. Whereas PwC looked at their internal wikis and internal content to generate answers for whatever questions employees would have. So this is another example for learning in the flow of work. And I have another one for a fourth layer, and I'm gonna stop, promise. And it's about social learning, which was super interesting for me. And it comes from General Motors. And what General Motors did was, and their AI did, was identifying influencers from different teams and functions who could help spur knowledge and facilitate knowledge sharing because they were so good at what they were doing. So these are some examples, and I actually wanted to throw the question back to you, Sofie, for the first layer, because I think even at Sana, you're doing lots of things, and you have a lot of experience and a good background into explaining the automation and efficiency part as well.
Definitely, thank you, Lavinia. And I to add some, or to build on the thoughts that you have already had. I think the first one regarding recommendations and personalization, much of that we are enhancing even further with tools like search. So, and this goes to, I think it was the third example. So just the first part of, for instance, tagging particular keywords with the natural language processing and these type of technologies, we can even remove this layer of tagging, which is an incredible part for automating a certain process that previously was manual or very time consuming. And I think all of these examples that you brought up, Lavinia, comes back to the value. What value does it create for the business? And it again comes back to technology as an enabler. It's only an enabler for us getting to an increased value for the actual business outcome. And going to learning within the flow of work and all of that, I think there we really want to decrease the time that employees are spending on finding information. We want to decrease the time that people are waiting for their colleagues to answer a question. And with search, when you can just ask a question, a natural language processing model can understand the nuance of this particular document, summarize with tools like ChatGPT, natural language processing based model, and summarize that answer for you. That's when we're really moving to the next level of providing knowledge or learning within the flow of work, because it's really meeting me where I am as an individual. But then we also have poor examples of how AI can be used within learning and development. And I know, again, let's look at the value. If it's very cumbersome to implement a machine learning tool or an AI technology in order to achieve a certain goal, well, let's use the more simple way of doing so. And a concrete example here, when we looked at personalization or adaptivity specifically, in some cases you need to build very large decision trees and tag the content to that, which is incredibly time consuming, even if you might have help from a machine learning tool that can help you with this automated tagging. You need to maintain that. And that could be one example of where there might be other simpler ways of providing that adaptivity for the value of the user, which may be time savings or increased motivation and engagement. But I think in terms of adopting AI within L&D, I think you're spot on, Lavinia, in terms of how can the L&D process become automated? How can we become more data-driven? Or also connecting to the rest of the ecosystem in terms of what sources can be part of my L&D system, and we can act on this data. But I actually want to go to some concrete example use cases of how you can use AI in learning, and show you a little bit how we're doing this at Sana. So we've spoken a lot about generative AI features. These are tools like ChatGPT or DALL-E that can generate things for you based on an input. And a concrete example in learning and something that we're doing at Sana is to generate questions, polls, key takeaways, or summaries based on the input that you have provided. So this is part of the content creation part of the value chain. And then you can also have an assistant similar to ChatGPT for brainstorming ideas or generating content based on a particular headline or outline. So it's really helping you speed up this content creation process, or just finding ideas or information about subjects that you previously didn't know. And then, of course, image generation, perhaps adjusted for your brand or your organization. And then, of course, like you mentioned, Lavinia, search, in terms of meeting the learner where they are and really finding that information quickly. But I want to go in and show you this in a more concrete way of how this can be done. But Lavinia, do you have anything to add here, or any other reflections?
No, I don't think so. Sorry, I started engaging in the chat, in the conversation. So no, thank you.
Okay, super. I'll go ahead and share my screen where I'll show you a concrete example of how this is done within the Sana learning tool. So right now I'm in an authoring tool within the Sana Create tool in a course about how you learn. And here within my cover image, I can choose to browse an image, or I can choose to generate one. So here I might want to generate one on, let's say, a brain learning. So here I can choose the type of style that I'd like. End goal is, of course, to do this for your own brand and your colors. But here we're collaborating with OpenAI, where we're using their DALL-E model that then takes natural text as input and provides it as an image as output. And this can then be used by you, and you're the owner of this sort of. But let's say that I want to add one of these reflective polls, ones that you've been using today. I can, of course, write my own, but maybe I want to get some help from a generative tool that will be analyzing the content that sits below here, which is about schemas. So every time I generate something, it's going to be different. And I generated a different one here and saved it because I thought it was a really good example. How much do you know about schema theory? And this is then a suggestion for you that you can get a little help on the way when you're creating your content, and think that can faster get you there, or that your perhaps co-creators can use. And as I've created my content here on schemas, I want to test my learners on this as well with a multiple choice question. And again, here, I can, of course, write it myself, or I can get help in generating it. So the underlying tool that we're using here is a model called GPT-3. It's quite similar to ChatGPT. It's also provided by OpenAI, but we have fine-tuned these models for our particular use case of learning, in this case, a multiple choice question, where I'm being provided with a few correct answers and a few incorrect ones. And again, I think this question is pretty good, but I also saved this one. Which of the following are good strategies? And then you can, of course, add more options or take away the ones so that you are always in control as a creator. And again, let's see the technology as an enabler, not as a replacement. It's just a tool of helping us get there. Coming back to ChatGPT, at Sana, we've implemented something we call Assistant. So here I want to create a section on learning techniques. That it doesn't matter if I spell it wrong, but I want to spell it right. Where I have my own assistant that can help me come up with anything from ideas to summaries to continuing writing on this. And in this case, I'd like to brainstorm some ideas on learning techniques. As you see, this is quite similar to the concept of ChatGPT, where I'm asking for help within a prompt that I'm getting. And I think in this case, it's really focused on machine learning. So sometimes you might want to retake the prompt. And in this case, I'm going to actually try to remake this and see what it creates for me as a second try. Because I would really like to have something exactly more focused on learning and how we learn as humans and not machine learning. So maybe I'll try this one, strategies for retaining information and applying it to new tasks, where I'll create a new part here. And again, I'll ask Assistant to continue writing for me. And as you quickly saw there, I can always ask Assistant to I can just hit tab here, where Assistant continues writing for me. And again, it's a suggestion, so I can always edit this as I like. But perhaps I want to add an image that's related to this topic. So just in a similar fashion to how this former part worked around providing a prompt, here My assistant is understanding the context of what I've been creating content about, and will provide an image based on this that it thinks exemplifies learning and how to remember this. Perhaps I want to generate the most important takeaways based on this. I can get help in doing so. Or again, maybe I want to provide a question for my learners that they then would be tested on for the specific information that they have learned. And the very nice thing about this is that the model understands the input given to it, so it can be specific for a particular organization or a particular product or process, which is quite fascinating and something that you can use internally at your organizations. So I hope this provided some context in terms of how AI can be used in practice within learning and development, and that this is one concrete example of how that can be done, and a bit more visual part of it. And we want to ask you, before we wrap up with today's session, what is one thing, or you're allowed to write several as well, that you will bring with you from today's session? Or perhaps there is something that you still feel is unanswered that we should do a follow-up session on, or a follow-up over discussions on LinkedIn. And I see a lot of people are typing here. Fantastic. Technology is an enabler, not a goal. Use AI for content creation. A lot of connections made. I'm so happy to hear that. And Lavinia, I'm proud to be part of your network and community now too. Also, don't be afraid of AI. I think that's a great takeaway. Lavinia, is there anything here that you think stands out, or that you would like to dig a little bit further into, or bring someone else into the conversation?
Well, I think don't be afraid of AI. To be honest, it's a very good one. And I think the only thought that I have, and it's a bit philosophical, and I didn't get the chance to share it while answering some of your questions, is that I'm not saying that AI is not big. It's definitely more important technological advancement than everything that we've seen before. But at the same time, people 20 years ago, 100 years ago, 150 years ago were saying the same about other technologies, and they did manage to adapt. So not being afraid of new tech advancement, it's the best way to go. Just being open to learn. And I think another, we don't have the time to elaborate on this, but I would also nudge people to think about the risks, or to read more, to explore more the risks that come associated with adopting these technologies, and just brainstorm ways to mitigate those risks, which is as important as adopting the technology. How about you, Sofie?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think thanks for bringing up the risks. I think that's such an important aspect. And I think we could see sort of a real life example of that now, when I tried to generate something that I was meant to be learning techniques of how human learns, but instead I got a suggestion on machine learning. So one of the risks is that a human always needs to be involved and needs to be in the loop. And if or the way I see it, if the human doesn't control this, or make sure to, fact check something that ChatGPT is pulling, that's a massive risk. So I definitely think we all, as a community, of course, need to take our responsibilities of making sure that we're using AI in a responsible way, where human error is always a risk. And then, of course, I think when we're talking about recommendation engines or data predictions, and when we're talking about bringing in data from other type of or other parts of the organization, the quality of the data is always what the model is trained on or predicted on. And then if there's poor quality data, you're going to get poor or inaccurate results. So I think that's also another risk.
We have a hand that's raised. I know we don't have much time, but I would like to take maybe Petra's question or thought.
Yeah. In short, long story short, I think AI, artificial intelligence with our hand, with a human hand on the plug in order to take it out when something is not convenient for us is not quite AI. This is just the baby AI. I think the danger is real, and I think AI is not just a tool. Our human tendency is to compare with the past, but nothing compares with this. I think. And if we are successful in AI development, it would be something that will have its hand on our plug, is the other way around. I think it's more relevant from my perspective, and I'll end my speech. The difference between AI and IA, intelligent automation, because I think for the vast majority of cases in learning and development, intelligent automation is much more powerful and relevant than AI. Like taking all the old needs in L&D that are not properly addressed from a tool set perspective, yes, from skill set perspective, mindset perspective, process, but not the tools. We didn't have the tools to do it. Like, I don't know, scaling the individual support to intelligent automation, or part of it, the current.
Yeah, definitely. And Petri, we're going to be staying behind, and for everyone else or anyone else who has questions or want to stay behind to discuss further, both Lavinia and I will be staying. You can also reach us through our email. So thank you all so much for joining. And Petri, let's continue the discussions. And I want to make sure that we finish on time and let people go who have other meetings or things to do. So thank you all so much for coming, and thank you, Lavinia, for being part of this.
Thank you for inviting me, and happy to get to meet everyone.